Hey guys, this is Kelly. I'm here today to give you a brief anatomy lesson. Not that kind of anatomy lesson, but the anatomy of fabric. I'm going to use this yard of Stash Stars to walk you through what makes up a piece of fabric. This is a yard of fabric, how I have it laid out here. Cut edge, folded edge at the bottom, selvage edge at the top. The selvage here is just this white strip. It's the finished edge of the fabric. It's made during production, runs the entire length of the bolt of fabric. First thing I'm going to talk about is the length versus the width of a piece of knit fabric. Width of fabric, of any fabric, is measured from selvage edge to selvage edge. So this direction. Most knit fabric is going to be somewhere between 52 to 60 inches in width. The length of a piece of fabric is measured in this direction from cut edge to the cut edge, and this is a yard, so the length of this piece should be around 36 inches, and it's around 38. So a yard of knit fabric will be approximately 36 inches in length by somewhere between 52 to 62 inches in width. One thing to know about your fabric before you start sewing with it is which direction does the grain line run and which direction is the stretch. You'll see that marked on pattern pieces a lot. It's important that you have it positioned correctly on your piece of fabric before you cut so that your finished garment will fit well. The grain line on knit fabric will run parallel to the selvage edge, but you may get a piece of fabric that doesn't have that selvage edge on it. So the best way really to tell is just by looking closely at the piece. You'll see the lines on the right side of the fabric where the knitted rows during production, the knit side has created rows. So there will literally be lines on the fabric if you look closely enough. And if you pull on the fabric, you can see them even better and see which direction they run. On this piece they're running in this direction, parallel. The stretch, and when they say stretch, they mean the most stretch. When you see that written on a pattern piece, the most stretch is going to run perpendicular to the grain line. So on this piece, the most stretch is in this direction. Cotton lycra, which this material is a percentage of cotton and a percentage of lycra. And the lycra is what gives the fabric its elasticity, its stretch, and also its recovery. This is a four-way stretch, so even though the most stretch is going to be perpendicular to the grain line, there will be some stretch that runs parallel with it. Just for your information. You may also see in a pattern to ask you to cut something on the bias. What that means is just to cut it at an angle. So you're going to cut across the grain line in this direction. You can see on this piece of fabric, this is pre-washed, that it's curling over here on the edge. A piece of knit fabric on the cut edge will roll towards the right side of the fabric. In most cases, the right side of the fabric is going to be pretty obvious. I mean, this is printed side, the other side is white, so it's obvious which side is your right side and which side is your wrong side. Sometimes on a solid piece, on a solid colored piece of fabric, it's not as obvious. That's something that can clue you in, is that the cut edge will roll towards the right side of the fabric. The selvage edge will roll towards the wrong side of the fabric. But probably the best way to tell which is the right side is, again, looking for those rows, those knitted rows, where the grain line is the most clear, because you're not going to see that on the wrong side. Last thing I want to talk about briefly is fat half versus half yard. You're going to see that on the BST, and it's pretty important to know the difference between the two. So as I said, this is a yard of fabric. It's around 36 inches in length. For a half yard, you would want to cut at around 18 inches, straight up to your selvage edge from the bottom folded edge. So a half yard is going to be about 18 inches in length by whatever the width of your fabric is. In this case, let's see, around 30. This is around 60 inches in width. So that would be your half yard. A fat half, which is what you'll see, I think most people that work with custom fabric prefer to have a fat half. A fat half is folded, again, selvage edge at the top, your cut edge on the side. Fat half is just cut right along this folded edge at the bottom. So pretend this bottom half of the fabric wasn't there, you would be looking at a fat half. So measure around 36 inches in length and around 30 inches in width. So I hope that you found this video informative, and we hope to have many more of these coming up in the future.